Okay, and we are back, hour number 2. This will be very important information for a lot of you. Illustrative of what's really going on with Google, which has more tentacles than 10 octopi. And Google is also involved in some very, very heavy-duty advanced research, a lot of which we don't even know about. In terms of mapping, learning to control, manipulate, and otherwise influence your DNA. It's all about control. Total, absolute, cradle-to-grave control. And here tonight to talk about this is Leuren Moret, who broke the story on this program of Google's nefarious deeds, which very few people outside of you folks listening have a clue about. Welcome back, Leuren.
Oh, good evening, Jeff. Thank you so much. This is really exciting to be able to continue updating the Google story.
Oh, it's huge.
It's huge.
They are doing things. I mean, look at that cute little logo. All right, about as harmless looking and non-threatening as it could be. People just don't understand the power, which is growing enormously all the time. Google has the total sanction and backing of the international elite who are running the show, and they are making really no bones about where they're going, and where they're going is total control. Look what they've done with their satellite, their ground cams going by down your street. Unless you really raise hell, your picture is on the internet, your home, your residence, your privacy. What privacy? It's all part of the TSA PSYOP. There are many facets to it of taking your dignity away, breaking you down, and making you completely malleable and easily manipulated and formed into any kind of mass they want. Leuren, go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the Internet, the history of the Internet, because that really exposes who is behind these programs and who the architects are. I was at Leuren Moret lab as a research scientist from 1989 to 91. And what I learned is that the backbone of the Internet was developed at Leuren Moret. The reason they developed it was out of concern for contractors working for the Department of Defense who had to be physically located close to each other so that they could communicate and collaborate on DoD projects. And the DoD developed the Internet as a sort of an email system so that contractors could decentralize and be scattered around the United States so that if there was an attack, they would not all be taken out by a few bombs in one central location.
Sure.
So, from the beginning to the middle to the present, the Internet is Department of Defense. It's Pentagon. It was set up by the Pentagon. It's controlled by the Pentagon. And it's being used by the Pentagon to control the masses. That is the purpose. There's no other way to describe it.
Agreed.
So, then, once they got the Internet set up, they gave it to us to use like a new Maserati, and everybody had lots of fun for 20 years on the Internet.
Well, totally addicting, of course.
It's completely addicting, but what they're doing is distracting, again, the people, the public, the population from social connections, community connections. They are taking people away from daily direct communication with the their web of life, the people around them.
Right, and it used to be, you make a beautiful point here, not so beautiful, but right on the money, face-to-face contact with people, looking them in the eye, three-dimensional sensory input from people, some would suggest 4, is crucial to an advancing society. This society has been literally sidetracked into a cul-de-sac, and it's now chasing its tail in a virtual world of Nothingness. It's amazing.
It's true. It's nothing. It's what they do. What I finally realized is that each time they give us something new and modern and wonderful that will improve our lives, what they're doing is actually taking away something that was vital to our humanity, to our spirituality, to our connectedness, and giving us something that is a piece of junk. And I've come to the conclusion, although I've used the Internet in just to have a tremendous advantage in being able to do research that it wouldn't be possible to do in a library.
That's the bait. It's a drug you cannot deny.
Yep.
I mean, it's totally
It's heroin through the DSL line.
Yep, there you go. That's it.
So what they've done is to set up the Internet, get us addicted to it, and then they started developing the programs, the applications. So the first one was Microsoft and Bill Gates. And Microsoft was set up so that there would be one global operating system that the U.S. government had a backdoor into for all computers everywhere in the world.
Right.
Then they set up Google as a search engine, and let's just look at the background of the two guys who supposedly set it up.
Larry Page and Sergey Brin.
That's right. Now, Sergey Brin he was born in Russia, so he's from an immigrant family. But listen to this. His father was a mathematician who worked at the University of Maryland, and his mother worked for NASA.
I didn't know that one. Well, it's like a blue blood line.
NASA. And that is exactly where Sergey Brin and Larry Page park their private jets.
Of course.
Is at the NASA facility.
Mm-hmm. They don't have to go through TSA. Gosh, what a surprise.
Right. Larry Page is, he's an American. His parents were both computer science professors at Michigan State University, and his father was one of the top experts in the United States on artificial intelligence. Now, Sergey Brin married a Polish-American woman called Anne Wojcicki, and she had started, actually, Sergey and Larry Page started Google in the garage of her sister. And Anne had started a company, a startup company before she married Sergey Brin called 23andMe.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have 23 chromosomes on our DNA, and that company was set up so that Anne could voluntarily connect DNA from people through the Internet who would pay her $1,000 to assess their DNA and then advise them on good marital matches for them through DNA matching.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is Larry Page married Lucinda Southworth, who has a PhD in biological information systems. That's pretty interesting, and those sure do sound like CAA marriages.
Yep.
So, as soon as Anne Wojcicki married Sergey Brin, she was given millions of dollars in venture capital from Google the day of the wedding.
I think she got $20 million just to start.
Right. And I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I drive over the San Francisco Bay Bridge or around the East Bay fairly frequently, and I can't tell you in the last year how many times I have seen that blimp from down there in the South Bay where they park their airplanes. There's a huge blimp, and on the side of it is painted 23andMe. And it spends all day and all weekend flying over San Francisco Bay Area advertising her company. Now, you know, you might say or ask Jeff, or someone else might ask, well, So if somebody wants to give their DNA and find out whether a potential partner is suited or not, you might say, well, that's just their business. But that's not true, because if you get one person's DNA in the family, you have everyone's.
That's right. All right, hold on. Leuren Moret is our guest tonight, a longtime friend of good people everywhere on the planet. Her work on depleted uranium, of course, really knows no bounds and needs not much of an introduction. She's talked about it too many times to count around the world and on this program as well. We're talking about Google and DNA and control. And we'll be back. Okay, back with Leuren Moret. Next time you hit the Google search function, just keep in mind that your finger is doing a lot more than simply looking up information. You're helping to propel a monster on the planet. It is a beast. It's unbelievable what's going on. Go ahead.
It's unbelievable, and what I want to emphasize is that Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and the social networking websites,
all of them.
eBay, Skype, Google Mail, Yahoo Mail, PayPal, these are all the same entity. They're all integrated. They get bought and sold and traded around, and they usually have a youthful face like Mark Zuckerberg or Sergey Brin or Bill Gates or Larry Page on the face of them, but these are all U.S. Navy and military operations, and Sergey Brin's ties through his mother to NASA really do expose that. Now, I know a physicist in Berkeley who told me that in the 1970s, in the laboratory that he was working in, they were tracking people in the lab by the electromagnetic frequency emitted by individuals' DNA. In other words, every living thing is an antenna that transmits and receives. We're an electrical system, and the DNA in every living thing has a unique frequency and signal. Believe it or not, that is what they're using, what they're focusing on, and what they're weaponizing to completely control us. The DNA Human Genome Project was carried out at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, where I was a staff scientist for 5 years. But the Lawrence Livermore Lab, Los Alamos National Lab, these are all nuclear weapons labs, were also involved. That means the military, because the nuclear weapons labs exist for the Pentagon, and the Pentagon exists for the oil companies. So the Human Genome Project was set up and well-funded to experiment and to research and to describe, to quantify and qualify the human genome. Now, how would they use that? Well, what we know about Google is that they are doing DNA surveys from space. This would be NASA and the Navy. NASA is run by the Navy. They have been tracking and identifying isolated populations, for instance, in the Amazon, who have never had contact with Western people. These are villages of isolated people who are still living their traditional hunter-gatherer lives,
right.
And they've never seen a Westerner. That's not just humans. They are also doing a global species survey, and I've been tracking this for 2 years and noticed that many new species are being discovered, and it seems to be on a grid system. So they're doing a survey from space, and they went down the west coast of South America and then came up the east coast, and now they're in Southeast Asia.